Peace, King. How you feeling?
Hey, how do I look? Everything look good. The lighting is good.
Yep, everything good, man. Thank you so much for coming on the platform. It's definitely an honor.
Hey, I wanted to ask you this: Are you from Cleveland?
Yeah, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio.
I could tell from the accent. I spotted it because it sounds just like some other brothers I know from Cleveland.
Right. Wow, that's cool because a lot of
Yeah,
times people in Cleveland don't think we have our own sound, but as I travel, people be like, "Are you from Cleveland? Or you sound like somebody from Cleveland?" I heard a few
yeah,
people say that.
yep.
Yeah, man. So we're gonna get right into it. I know you got moves to make. For the viewers who may not recognize you, let them know who you are and definitely where you from.
Okay, well, I'm Akil Parker, professor, teacher, founder and the CEO of All This Math, and I was raised in Baltimore, but I currently reside in Philly. I've been in Philly for the past 20 years, but I was raised in Baltimore.
Okay, okay, that's what's up. Shout out to Philly and Baltimore. Um, Now let me see if you could talk about what is all this math.
So, All This Math is a company I started back in 2017 to kind of more formalize the work I was doing around math tutoring. And I just wanted to become more serious about it. I was already a high school math teacher teaching different courses like Algebra 1, Algebra 2, Geometry, Trigonometry, Pre-Cal, calculus classes like that. And I just decided to become more serious about math tutoring because I realized that that's really what our young people really need. They need more individualized attention outside of the classroom, similar to the way athletes need more individualized practice after the practice with the teams, with the teams that they play on. So we started doing math tutoring, and that spread to some educational consulting work, some teacher coaching, um and then we started a YouTube channel, which I want everybody to subscribe to, the All This Math YouTube channel. The All This Math YouTube channel is basically free math tutoring. It's really free math tutoring. I started that because I realized I couldn't tutor everybody by myself, and also I recruited my son to be a math tutor as well. He's been tutoring with the company since he was a high school freshman, and now he's a college freshman still tutoring. So, but I realized that the two of us, we couldn't tutor everybody, and also there are only 24 hours in the day. So I started this YouTube channel to just put up content and pre-recorded videos for people to just go check out at their leisure, just so they could get a better understanding of the work that they're being presented with, in the classroom. So we started the YouTube channel back, in 2020 during the pandemic. And at this point, we got over 4,000 subscribers, and we got currently almost 700 videos ranging from arithmetic, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, all the way up to calculus one. And we got everything in between. We got a lot of algebra 1 content, algebra 2 content, geometry content. So I really want the YouTube channel to be a place where the black community can go and really get, support in math. Because, a lot of times we hear the complaints and the horror stories about people not understanding math and not understanding their teachers, whether they're in elementary school, middle school, high school, college, or, for whatever reason. And I'm just a very solution oriented person. So I just wanted to provide a resource that people could use and benefit from, so that way they don't have those horror stories no more, or that that frustration. And it's also for parents too, because I want parents to be able to feel confident that they can sit down and help their children with their homework when they bring the homework home, and it looks like a new math, a math that we might not have learned 30, 35, 40 years ago, grandparents too, uncles, aunts, whoever. So that's what the YouTube channel is for. And all of the things that we do with All This Math really support the larger mission of improving the relationship that the black community has with mathematics, because oftentimes many of us have a very negative relationship with mathematics, and we tend to run away from mathematics, and we tend to try to avoid it at all costs any way we can, because it wasn't taught to us well. It wasn't taught to us in a way that made it make sense. It wasn't taught to us in a way that made it seem relatable and understandable. So that's part of our larger mission. We want our people to run to the math instead of running away from the math.
Yeah, facts, man. I appreciate you sharing that. That sounds so dope. I really, really appreciate what you're doing, man. It's definitely needed because I substitute teach myself, and I find myself in positions where I'm subbing for a class, and I can see that all the students they obviously not on the same level, especially with math. And like you said, they coming with new strategies and different ways. So I even done found myself sometimes with, well, how did your teacher show you how to do it? I'm trying to
Yeah.
show them the old school ways. So I'm like, I gotta go get some help myself. So that's something I
Mhm.
definitely be interested in.
Yeah. It would definitely direct the youngins, to the YouTube channel, and if you need to brush up whenever you're substituting, just pull up the channel, go look at one of the playlists, because all the playlists, identify what topic it is. So no matter what topic you're doing, whether it's solving linear equations, whether it's working with exponents, or whether you're doing some work with fractions and mixed numbers, we got everything kind of organized, so anybody can go find whatever it is they need. Another thing I like about the YouTube channel is it kind of mirrors, the way my classrooms are always set up, because I was always the teacher where, my students would inevitably always say, Mr. Parker, you should have been an African American history teacher. So, because I'm always infusing the culture, infusing the Black history, even in a geometry class or algebra 2 class. So, while I might be doing a video on, solving quadratic equations, but before we start the video, we might have to have a conversation about Malcolm X. Or we might have to have a brief conversation about Asada Shakur, Ida B. Wells, who shared a birthday, incidentally, and then we get into the actual math lesson. I might be wearing a t-shirt or a hoodie or a sweatshirt that, highlights one of those people, one of those historical figures, because I also realized when I was teaching that not only did a lot of my students have deficiencies in math, they also had deficiencies in historical awareness, and knowledge of self. So I definitely want to address that. So I address that on the YouTube channel. So I call it, simplified math videos infused with Black history. So you're getting that 2 for 1, whenever you go check out the channel. Yeah, I just want people to you subscribe to the channel, use the channel, share the channel, tell everybody about it. Just like we share memes and little clips off of TikTok and Instagram that we find funny. I want people to definitely share this channel, so we can learn math once and for all. And then once we learn math, it's going to open up so many doors for us and for our children, because math is really the gatekeeper to a lot of opportunities, not just in STEM, but we got to also understand that a lot of us may be operating with a false or a faulty definition of what math actually is. A lot of times we think math is just equations and a bunch of numbers and a bunch of irrelevant processes and whatnot, but really what math is problem solving. That's really what it is. I was just having a conversation with my girlfriend about this a little earlier, how a lot of people, when they say things like, they didn't take this math class, or a person says, I never took this math class, I never took that math class, I never needed this much math, but then they proceed to then talk about all the problem solving that they do with their job, or whether if they're an entrepreneur and they're running a company and then they got to solve all these problems and manage this and manage that and figure this out and figure that out. And as we listen to them talk, or when I listen to people like that talk, I'm like, bro, you don't get it. You really doing math. You don't realize that that's math that you're doing. You're thinking mathematically. And, and also the fact that math is really an umbrella that really has a lot of sub disciplines within it. Like logic is a subset of mathematics. So if you talk about just being a logical person, that's math, right? If you're trying to figure out if somebody is lying to you, you know what I mean? That's math. You're doing a mathematical analysis of what somebody is saying to you and making sure that everything adds up and making sure that it's consistent with what you saw with your own eyes, or what you read with your own eyes, or whatever, or what somebody told you before. That's a mathematical process. So a lot of times many of us, we make complaints about math because we haven't had a lot of success in math, but it's also because we don't really know what math really is. Nobody gave us a proper definition of it. So a lot of times you got people walking around here using math all the time, talking about they never use it or they never used it, and that's just because, they don't really know what it actually is.
Yeah, that's facts, man. I mean, our world revolve around math. So I gotta ask you, when did you come to this realization or fall in love with math? Because, like you said, a lot of people, they're frightened by math, they're intimidated by it, they even hate math. You know what I'm saying? So was it something was you like a whiz kid with the numbers at a young age, or is it something like you kind of worked on and developed and got better at as you got older?
Well, I would say that from a young age, I had some good teachers, starting with my mom. My mom was really strong in math, so at a young age, she, kind of laid a foundation for me when I was very young. And then, in school, I had, some, as I said, some quality teachers that kind of carry, built on top of what my mom instilled in me from an early age. But I didn't really love math until much later in life. I appreciated math, but math was just more of a means to an end. I just was a person that just did well in school. I just generally did well in school. Like my dad was a teacher. My dad was a and still is a social studies, and a history teacher. So I always thought it just would make sense to be a good student if my father was a teacher. And that would be like embarrassing to be out here like, getting low grades and doing poorly if, in my household I got a whole teacher, a whole black man that was a teacher in my household. So I just was always real motivated to do well in school. And then I would get a lot of positive reinforcement and a lot of attention from getting good grades and bringing good grades home. So math was just one of those classes, that I took that I strived to do well in at all times. And, math to me when I was very young was kind of like a video game. Doing math problems was like playing video games. I would just like, figure out what the patterns were, and I would like memorize, memorize the formulas and the algorithms, and then I would just just do the problems and just get the right answer, and then go on to the next problem. But the issue that I didn't realize back then, I didn't realize this until I became old and I started teaching on a college level at Cheney University out here outside of Pennsylvania. Cheney, the first historically black college, founded in 1837, as the Institute for Colored Youth. Some people say it's not the first because it was technically a high school back then, but I'll let them deal with that. But I started teaching math methods courses, at Cheney University, and it forced me to learn what people call the new math. And I gained a conceptual understanding of math, because the way I look at math is there's two different ways to approach it. There's the procedural aspect of it, but then there's the conceptual aspect of it. And when I was young, I was really good with the procedures, memorizing the steps, memorizing the algorithms and everything. But if somebody asks me, why does long division work? Or when you multiply these two fractions, why does it work like that? I had no idea. I could not tell you, like for the life of me, and I didn't care. And maybe I had some teachers that really didn't emphasize that a lot, right? Or maybe they didn't know themselves, but since I was put in a position where I had to teach math, teach the conceptual aspects of math, then I really started to love it. That's when I started to love it. So that was much later in my life, like as like a 30-something-year-old man, like, because beforehand I kind of was just, math was cool. It was something that, made me feel good about myself, being able to, get good grades and, get the highest grade in the class, whatever, when I was in like elementary, middle, or high school. And I could like use it as a tool to figure stuff out, out and about, or, we out to dinner and I could figure out the tip off the top of my head, because I knew the algorithms and whatnot. But I didn't really develop a love for it until I really started teaching math methods courses at Cheney University. So shout out to Cheney. And, and I started doing a lot more tutoring, because with doing the tutoring, you're dealing with different learners on an individual basis. And as teachers know, as good teachers know, you become a good teacher by teaching, so it's really your students that teach you how to teach, because you're trying to figure out how can I cater to their learning style, because everybody doesn't have the same learning style. So a lot of students have different learning styles, and you don't want to just be the guy that like, okay, I only got one teaching style or one method of explaining this. So if I only got one way to explain this, then if my one way to explain this don't match up with this person's learning style, then they're not going to learn it. So as a teacher, it's kind of like, I look at it, I liken it to kind of like being a good rapper. Like rappers have to be able to like be diverse and switch their flow up sometimes, because I might be talking about a different topic, or the producer might give them a certain type of beat, so I might have to like switch up a little bit, or I might be on a track. They might be on a track with somebody that's from down south, or somebody that's from the West Coast, or somebody that's from New York, or somebody that's from the Midwest, and they got like it's a different vibe. So you want to be able to like switch up and still be able to communicate what you're trying to say. So I think good teachers got to be able to do the same thing. So you got to be able to like have different teaching styles to match up with all those different learning styles that you might have in a classroom all at the same time. And with tutoring, if you're doing individual tutoring, you kind of get the opportunity to like learn those different learning styles that people have, and then you can just benefit in that way. So that's really being able to, having had those experiences, that's when I really like developed a love for math. So now I love her. I used to love her back in the day, but I love her now, you know.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, man, you definitely make math sound cool and fun, and I appreciate what you're doing. Like you mentioned, mixing it with the Black history. You mentioned a lot of iconic people. I'm sure they proud of you, man. What you're doing, that's real, real dope. Now let me see. I wanted to ask you this. Now, at what point in general do you feel like maybe children they may begin to dislike math or feel it's hard or fall behind in math. Because I was gonna say, like, when I was in school, we had this test in Ohio called the proficiency test. It was a ninth grade test, and you have to take 5 parts. You have to take English, math, science, history, whatever. And it was people that took the test in eight. We took the test in eighth grade, so I passed all 5 parts of my test on the first try. I only took the test once, but I had friends that took that test every single year up into the 12th grade, and they had to take it in summer school. So they took that test probably 12 times, and it was always the math portion. And I
Hmm.
could just remember, like, it was proficiency test time. People was all jittery and nervous. People was upset, crying, waiting on their results. So that's for me, I remember that being a time where everybody just was like, man, I can't wait till this math thing is over with.
I mean, it's nothing coincidental or accidental. What I would say is I think that what we got to realize is that there are people and entities that benefit greatly from our math deficiency. And until we accept that and confront that head on, a lot of times we're not going to be able to find the proper solutions, because a lot of times the solutions that people tend to come up with are one sided. They're only based on, okay, well, as if just the children are just, not smart enough, or the children are just not, being taught well enough. And I mean, some of those things are valid. Those things do contribute to the deficiencies that we have. But we also got to realize that, it is in the best interest of certain groups and certain entities for Black children and Black people, especially specifically, to not be able to excel in mathematics. If we think about mathematics as a system of problem solving, right, as a way, different ways to teach people how to solve problems. And then you also think about the fact that for every person that has a problem, there's somebody on the other side benefiting from them having that problem. So, in my opinion, based on my estimation and my studies and my experience, mathematics, out of all the subjects and disciplines, is the single best subject, most equipped to teach people problem solving skills, analytical reasoning, and critical thinking ability. So if you can convince, if I don't want people to solve their problems, because I'm profiting from them having those problems by hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars on a monthly basis, on an annual basis, then it's in my best interest to make sure that you never learn how to problem solve. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to create an environment and create propaganda and media that's gonna make you feel like you should run away from math, right? You should avoid it like the plague. Like don't deal with math. And also I gotta program you to think that it's too hard. I gotta program you to think that you're not smart enough to get it. I gotta program you to make you think that you're never going to use it in life. I got to make you think that it's irrelevant. I got to make you think all these things in a subtle way, because as long as I can do that, you won't have the skills that you need to solve your problems. And if you can't solve your problems, then if I'm benefiting financially from you having those problems, I'm gonna keep getting this money. I'm gonna keep running my bag up, because I'm gonna keep making those millions and millions of dollars from the maintenance of your problem. So I think we always gotta realize that. So when we think about, like, when is it that children start to have issues with math, I mean, it starts very early. Like, for some children, it starts like the day they set foot in the school, or maybe it's before that, because maybe they saw a movie where there was a character or something, and they just hated math, or somebody made like a low key like comment about this being too hard, or how you ever just like see pictures and images where, like, if you want to express an idea of something being difficult, it might be a person, and in the background it's a bunch of math formulas, right, to communicate this idea. Like, so we always associate something difficult with something mathematical, right? But we got to consider this. Like, it's a lot of things in life that are difficult, a lot of things in life that are challenging, a lot of things in life that require work and require practice and repetition. Yet with a lot of those things, we don't never feel like, well, I don't have the gene that I need to do well at this, right? Like cooking is not easy, playing certain sports is not easy, but people keep doing it because we feel those things are fun and we feel those things are beneficial. But we're kind of like not able to see, and we're not shown like the benefits of mathematics. Like, we're just shown, okay, well, this seems too hard. And another problem I'm gonna say is the people that do excel in math, like those individuals in the community, especially the Black community, people like myself growing up, what we have to do is we got to start, pushing back when we get a lot of that recognition that we get. And I'm gonna tell you why. And that's gonna sound strange to a lot of people, because what happens is when a lot of times when we get identified as like being good at math, it creates this like it promotes this idea that we're somehow these like black unicorns, right? That is something special about us, right? Now we may be intelligent, and we may have had good teachers, and we may be, you know, perseverant, and we may know how to analyze and like figure things out. But what that does is it confirms this idea that it's not normal to be good at math. It's like, look, these kids are outliers. They're anomalies, right? Most black people aren't going to be good at math, but look at them. They're the special black people. And then also on a political level, that also creates a problem because as a young child being impressionable, you might soak that up and buy into that. And then you start to feel alienated from your community because you start to feel like, well, I'm better than the rest of y'all. I'm smarter than the rest of y'all, right? Now, you might have been in a different institution. You might have had better teachers than some other people had, but it doesn't mean that you're generally just more intelligent or more intellectually savvy or whatever. It doesn't necessarily mean that. And what we got to start doing is figuring out ways to kind of push back on that type of recognition that kind of just it does more harm than good, because what people do is they kind of play into our individual egos, and they know that we want to feel good and be recognized and be labeled as, oh, he's good at math, she's good at math, they're great, they're this, they're that. It's like, yeah, that's cool, but what is it doing for the community though? Now, if you turn it around and taking your skills and you going out to the community and teaching the people that weren't recognized as being so great at math, then that's great. But a lot of times we kind of just take it and run with it and then go on to this school or go on to that school. We get that opportunity or this opportunity, the next opportunity. And then a lot of us end up leaving the community behind. So what we got to do is I think we got to start to push back on some of the recognition that we get, and then stop and just say, like, look, like, you know, yes, I did well. Yes, I excelled and I'm proud of myself, you know, because I worked hard. But I want you to understand that this should be normal. There's nothing, this should not be like, it might be extraordinary right now, but we should work to create a community and create a society where this is the norm, right? Where like all young black children by the age of like, or by like sixth grade are like doing algebra one, like with no problem. Like just as easy as it is for them to like play Robux and play different video games, or when, you know, high school students like should be like by ninth grade able to do calculus successfully, you know, just as easy as it is for them to play Call of Duty or play 2K or whatever, right? And we should be working as a community to try to create that. But we gotta first, you know, start to believe that this is normal, right? It's nothing like, it shouldn't be extraordinary for like, you know, a black child to excel in math, right? Excelling in math is really in our DNA. I mean, if we just study the history, you know, black people are the first civilization, the first human beings, the first civilization. You can't have a civilization without mathematics, because you can't, you know, allocate resources, you can't count and measure, you can't do none of that. You can't build pyramids, you can't build buildings, you can't build houses, you can't maintain society successfully without mathematics. So it's in our DNA anyway. It was normal for our ancestors to excel in math, you know, so it should be normal for us to excel in math. But we just got to get back to that. And I just think that one of the tools and one of the methods that we can use to do that is to, when people do get recognized, when young people, especially when they get recognized for how well they've performed mathematically, we should honor them and recognize them. But then we should also take it a step further and even have them say like, yo, like, yeah, I did great, but this really should be the norm. But a lot of times we kind of accept the fact that it's not the norm and we don't expect it to be the norm. And then it becomes discouraging for the people watching that sometimes, like, because low key, they'd be like, yeah, see, that's them. They real great at math. That's not me. But I wonder, like, what a difference would be made if the person that's being recognized for doing so great in math, if they took a step back and said, well, listen, yeah, I appreciate all this attention, but look, this really should be normal. Everybody in this whole auditorium should be able to do as well in math as I did.
Man, no doubt, no doubt. Man, you got me over here thinking. I'm still processing a lot of stuff you were saying, but I can only imagine how our community would look if we did normalize math. If everybody jumped on board and followed your lead, you know what you was doing. If we had parents and grandparents, like, okay, we got we celebrating this new baby in the family, baby shower and all that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, certain obstacles as adults we already know was coming. So if
Mm-hmm.
we just implement that math, normalize it, I think the success rate of our children it just seemed like it would just almost, be so great, man. So let me see. Okay, I want to ask you about this. Now, you had a video online, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, I guess. You say math is gun violence prevention.
Yeah. Yeah, so what I meant by that was when we think about gun violence, if we do a serious critical analysis of gun violence and like where does the gun violence come from? Like, so you got people that have guns and young people that have guns and are, traveling in certain circles and, living a certain lifestyle, and are in certain spaces where they feel they need that protection, right? So they need that type of protection. And a lot of times that's a result of it does, and that's not happening overnight, right? It's a result of a feeling of alienation from more mainstream institutions such as school, right? A lot of times people start out in school, young age, they might be doing well at an early age, but then they might start to develop some deficiencies, some learning gaps. They might have been, the second graders or third graders that was in class that didn't know their addition facts already, didn't know their subtraction facts already. And math is a class that's so cumulative that every year, every successive year, the content builds on the previous year's content. So if you didn't get it in the previous year, you need it for the next year. You got to get it in the summer. You got to get it on the weekends. You got to get it in the evening. If that don't happen, when you get into the class the next year, you're just going to be behind because you can't practice and implement the new material if you don't understand the previous year's material, right? So it becomes this cycle of just students being disengaged from school and alienated from school and alienated from education generally, because all education should, does not have to come from a school setting, but for a lot of people that is where the education comes from, or at least that's where they perceive education should come from. So once you get alienated from that, especially as young black males, the streets start to seem a lot more sexy and a lot more inviting and a lot more attractive. Some people even drop out of school, or some people perform or end up in this kind of like situation that I used to term, when I taught at Overbrook High School out in West Philly, they were in school dropouts. Like they would come and be present physically, right? Just so, they wouldn't get caught up in that whole truancy game, right? So, but they would be in the building, but they would be mentally gone, right? They would be, maybe sitting in the back with their AirPods in, listening to music, zoned out or whatever. Maybe they might be asleep or whatever. And then as a teacher, you got to make a decision. Okay, do I try to engage with this and try to, bring him back, or do I just teach everybody else? Right. That is paying attention, So a lot of times as year after year, then like I said, the streets become more inviting because there's a lack of buy-in into formal schooling, right? And a lot of that lack of buy-in into formal schooling is a result of the math deficiency. So even when I'm coming up, even when I'm presenting this type of analysis, it's a mathematical process I'm going through. It's almost like the transitive property, because it's like, okay, you lack the buy-in in the formal schooling. And then where did that come from? So when we reverse engineer the issue and try to analyze it, it's like, well, a lot of that comes from a lack of performance or deficiencies in mathematics that never get addressed. And then it's like, okay, well, school is really not my thing. Education is really not my thing. The streets are going to be my thing. But it all started with that young brother, right? And this happens to girls too, right? But the young brother, since we're talking about gun violence, and this mainly addresses the young brothers, right? They start going into spaces, where they may feel that guns are necessary, start living lifestyles where guns are necessary. And then that's when the shootings happen, because they're out on the block, they're out on the streets. And why? Because it's like, what else I'm gonna do, right? Once you don't have that foundation in mathematics, it's not as if like you're thinking to yourself, well, I'm gonna go to school because I'm in the ninth grade and I'm taking algebra 2 and geometry at the same time because I'm on pace to take calculus by 12th grade. And after I take calculus in 12th grade, then I'm going to college the next year and I'm a major in an engineering. I'm gonna be an engineer. I'm a major in mechanical engineering, computer engineering, electrical engineering, industrial or civil engineering, whatever type of engineering. That's so far from their reality, because of that weak foundation that they had when they was in elementary school. So Then you end up on the block, you end up in the streets, you end up hanging out, you end up in spaces where you feel the need to defend yourself, which is a real thing. I'm not saying that they shouldn't feel the need to defend themselves, but what I'm saying is when you end up in that environment, people got to do what they got to do, or they're going to do what they feel they got to do. And I think that the way to avoid that, one of the best ways to avoid that again, is by providing a strong foundation in mathematics from an early age so that they don't end up in that space 10 years later. Because when we look at the shooters now, the teenagers that are shooting now, they might be 16, 17 years old, right? But I would argue that, and I haven't done this specific research yet, but I would submit and I would wager that 10 years ago, right? If they 16 to 17 now outside shooting, you know, um, and some murders have taken place at their based on and they're responsible for 10 years ago, they probably was in first grade or second grade and didn't have basic math skills. And then there was a cumulative effect because when they got the second and third grade, they still didn't have the requisite math skills. When they got the third and fourth grade, they still didn't have the requisite math skills. When they got the fourth and fifth grade, sixth and seventh, eighth and ninth, they never developed those requisite math skills, and they just dug a deeper and deeper hole was dug for them. And then, as I said already, the streets just become more attractive. And once the streets become attractive, then you out there. You know, it's like they say, once you come out off the porch, it's like it's no turning around. And then Yo Gotti say that. Yo Gotti said that back in the day, one of his mixtapes. You come on down off that porch, there's no turning around. So what I want us to do as a community, and this is a long-term solution to the gun violence epidemic or the gun violence issue, is we gotta deal with the problem early. We gotta deal with the problem right now. So the young brothers and sisters that's first grade, second grade, third grade that don't even have multiplication facts memorized, don't have addition and subtraction facts memorized, we got to address them because if we don't, 10 years from now, all over the country, they're gonna be the ones that's gonna be shooting. They're gonna be the ones that's gonna be shooting. So we gotta apply like a long-term approach to this problem because oftentimes what people do now is it's like, oh, now people are all up in arms. Like, oh, gun violence this, gun violence that. Well, it's like I'd be looking at it like, bro, like we were supposed to be worried about this 10 years ago, right? We got to look at like, okay, who's doing the shooting now? We got to, again, this is a mathematical approach to even assessing a problem. Like, how do you reverse engineer this? You say, okay, well, who's shooting now? What are their demographics? What is their background? Why are they doing it? Why does it make sense to them? What are their other what are the other aspects of their life existence right now? And then how did they get to this point? And then we go back and say, okay, 10 years from now, 10 years ago, how could we have intervened, had an intervention and prevented this? And then if we can't save them now, what about the ones that are young right now? Then we got to think to ourselves, what are we doing right now to prevent the 7 and 8-year-olds right now from being the shooters 10 years from now? And then we also got to think about, again, who benefits from that. So we got to know what we up against. So a lot of times we look at it like we're like those in the community that care about this. A lot of times we feel like it's us against those young people. It's not really us against those young people. It's us against those forces that benefit and want those young people to take that route. They want those young people to be alienated from school and disengaged from education. Because for one thing it does is it makes them not be competition for certain other people, for certain other young people when it comes time to try to compete for those engineering jobs, those architecture jobs, those computer science jobs, those healthcare field jobs. And I'm talking about like being an actual physician, being a registered nurse, like all of those types of jobs that require a strong math foundation. So we always got it when we deal with any problem and we assess any problem, we got to think about, okay, who's benefiting from this problem? And far too often that's left out of the conversation because we almost go into it acting as if everybody's being harmed. Well, there's no way everybody's being harmed or else the problem would have been solved. The reason a lot of problems persist is because somebody's benefiting from it. Somebody's on the other side of that problem. They winning, right? Because certain people losing, but it's got to be winners and losers. So we got to first be able to assess who's winning and who's benefiting from this. And what we might realize is that some of those people that are winning, they're the same people that want to slide up and get beside the people that are losing and act like we're on the same side, right? Because it's like that's a small price for them to pay. Because if I'm a major corporation or if I'm a government entity and I'm profiting by billions of dollars on an annual basis from these problems in the Black community, such as gun violence, right? Then I might just, slide up, do a little photo op or whatever, or come, come on the news or whatever, and then, act as if I'm trying to help in the problem. I might, cut a check for $100,000. I might cut a check for $1 million, right? That's nothing. If I'm on the other side benefiting by billions, I could cut a check for $1 million to make it look like I'm trying to end the problem. But once we do the digging, and once we do that real critical analysis and apply that mathematical thinking, we're gonna realize that it's no way that these people are really on our side. It's all just for show.
Man, I appreciate you, King. You was breaking it down. Yeah, man. So you pretty much covered everything. I could just ask you if you could just recap what's the website, the YouTube channel, and the social media for the viewers who want to keep up with what you're doing and tap in with you.
Yeah, definitely, man. So if y'all out here, you watching this, you're concerned with, the black community becoming more proficient generally overall at mathematics, support the work we doing at All This Math. Our website is allthismath.com. We're on all the socials, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, at All This Math, all one word, and definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel. Tell everybody about our YouTube channel. Use our YouTube channel. It's also at All This Math. Just just tap in and lock in. And let's help change the reality for, a lot of our people.
Oh yeah, no doubt. All right, so I want to thank you again, King. It's definitely been an honor. It's been a phenomenal episode. Like I say, you dropped a lot of gems. I'm still processing a lot of the stuff that you were saying, and I'm gonna go back and touch up on my math skills, and I'm sure the viewers will as well. So I gotta thank them too for tuning in. It's been a great episode of Taye Speaks. So until next time, family, peace.
Appreciate it.
For sure.